there's a famous statement made in the 1780s by Wolfgang. What a great last name, huh? I just love that. Anyways, but it says this: ignorant men raise questions that wise men answered 1,000 years ago, and how much more so when you think about the Bible, God answering questions. Now, when I was a student, Margaret Thatcher was loved by my mom, and my mom, I just love her so much, and she'd see Margaret Thatcher come, and she goes, oh, she's like really smart and so forth. Margaret Thatcher was dealing with a thing called socialism. Ever hear of that? All right? And so she made some observations and she made some statements. I remember them as a kid, and I was trying to sort this stuff out as a student. One of the things that she said, socialists cry power to the people and raise their clenched fist as they say it. We all know what that really means. Power over the people, power of the state, power of the state. Boy, these things were thought out beforehand. Absolutely good observation. Another one, she mentions the problem of socialism, that eventually you run out of other people's money. Because ultimately, it's run on envy, and you have to envy other people and the resources they have. And so she was, at the end of her 11 years as prime minister, there's this closing time when she's in Parliament. Now, Parliament is different. They're much more engaged, okay? And there's this 2 minutes. I just want you to hear this, because it's part of the conversation today in our society between those who have resources and those who don't have resources, between the rich and the poor, and this whole subject. And I'm telling you, think about envy, because we're going to see it right in our text. They're talking economics. How much has changed over the last 50 years? Not much. Watch this.
I give way to the honourable gentleman.
There is no doubt that the Prime Minister has in many ways achieved substantial success in the economy. There is one statistic that I understand is not, however, challenging, and that is that over her 11 years, the gap between the richest 10% and the poorest 10% in this country has widened substantially. That's right. How can she say at the end of her chapter of British politics that she can justify many people in a constituency such as mine being relatively much poorer off, much less well housed, and much less well provided than it was in 1979? Surely she accepts that is not a record that she or any Prime Minister can be proud of.
Mr. Speaker, all levels of income are better off than they were in 1979. But what the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That is the Liberal policy. Yes, it came out. He didn't intend it to, but he did. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
I'm extremely grateful. The Prime Minister is aware that I detest every single one of her domestic policies, and I've never hid that.
And I think that the honourable gentleman knows that I have the same contempt for his socialist policies as the people of East Europe who have experienced it have it for theirs. I think I must have hit the right nail on the head when I pointed out that the logic of those policies are they'd rather have the poor poorer. Once they start to talk about the gap, they'd rather the gap was that. Down here. That. Not that. But that. So long as the gap is smaller, they'd rather have the poor poorer. You do not create wealth and opportunity that way. You do not create a property-owning democracy that way.
Wow, that lady was smart. So here's what I want you to walk away with. We've seen 4 illustrations. We've seen it in the envy in the workplace. We've seen envy in the home, envy in political decisions and how they're shaped, envy in the area of economics. And the bottom line is when you have envy, people turn into crybabies. How many of you ever had your mom say to you, "Don't be a crybaby"? Now, I know you really want to say that to the person next to you. And so we're going to give you permission right now to go ahead and turn to somebody and say, "Don't be a crybaby." Go ahead. Now, Pastor Tom, I'm a little surprised. I thought they'd say it with a little more force. Don't be a crybaby.